Imagine being trapped inside a stone fortress, watching as massive war machines slowly inch closer, their purpose clear: to breach your walls and claim your castle. Welcome to the ruthless world of medieval siege warfare. Castles, towering testaments to power and ingenuity, weren't just lavish homes for lords, they were the epicenters of medieval society. And more importantly, symbols of unmatched strength. But where there's strength, there's ambition. And where there's ambition, there's conflict. Now, when armies weren't clashing in open fields, they were knocking on the doorsteps of these mighty castles. But these weren't polite knocks. We're talking battering rams, hammering down gates, and trebuchets flinging massive stones over walls. Ever heard of a trebuchet? It's like the medieval version of a catapult on steroids. These gravity-powered wonders could sling projectiles as heavy as cows, imagine that, over castle walls. And if that didn't do the trick, there were siege towers, moving fortresses rolled up to walls to allow invaders a fighting chance to scale them. You think your tech upgrades are cool? Wait till you see a battering ram in action. But let's rewind a bit. Siege wasn't just about rocking up and saying, "All right, lads, let's knock this place down." It started with encirclement. The attackers would surround the castle, cut off supply lines, and basically starve out the defenders. It was a war of patience, a mind game. Attackers used tactics to weaken and demoralize those inside. Think of it as the medieval version of sending angry emoji texts to your opponent. Now, defending a castle wasn't all feasting and waiting. Defenders had some clever tricks up their sleeves. Moats weren't just there for aesthetic purposes. They were the first line of defense. And battlements? They allowed archers to rain down arrows on any brave or foolish soul who dared approach. There was even boiling oil, folks. You did not want to be the guy climbing up the ladder when that came pouring down. History has given us some jaw-dropping siege stories, like the Siege of Jerusalem in 1099 during the First Crusade. Crusaders surrounded the city and, after a fierce battle, broke through. The outcome: let's just say Jerusalem had a change in management. Sieges weren't glamorous. They were gritty and grueling. It wasn't just the fear of an arrow finding its mark. It was the slow, creeping dread of hunger, disease, and desperation. Both attackers and defenders faced immense challenges. Sometimes even the weather played a part. Imagine being soaked in rain, trying to light a wick torch, all while evading arrows. There were times when the defenders, recognizing their dire straits, chose to negotiate or surrender. No shame in that. It was either that or face the wrath of an invader who'd spent weeks, even months, outside their walls. Some sieges led to unexpected alliances, while others resulted in bitter betrayals. But like all things, siege warfare had its era. With advances in artillery and the discovery of gunpowder, castles, once considered impregnable, suddenly seemed vulnerable. The age of knights and castles gave way to cannons and fortresses. Siege warfare evolved, becoming less about prolonged standoffs and more about strategic firepower. Yet, the legacy of these epic confrontations endures. Castles with their towering walls and storied pasts still captivate us. Think of every movie or show you've watched featuring a castle siege. It's intense, right? In summary, siege warfare wasn't just a battle tactic. It was an art form. It required innovation, determination, and sheer willpower. The next time you visit a castle, pause for a moment. Think of the countless stories those walls could tell, the whispered secrets of battles won and lost. And hey, if you found this dive into medieval warfare fascinating, smash that like button, comment with your favorite castle story, subscribe for more deep dives, and share the knowledge. Because remember, history isn't just about dates and facts. It's about the epic stories that shaped our world. Imagine being inside a castle, surrounded by thick stone walls, feeling impervious. But then, out of nowhere, the earth shakes as giant projectiles hurl against those same walls. That was the terror of the trebuchet. This monstrous siege weapon, resembling a giant seesaw, was capable of launching massive boulders over great distances. But it wasn't just brute force. The trebuchet's design was a feat of medieval engineering, blending physics with destruction. If you were a defender, seeing a trebuchet set up outside your castle was a bad day, to say the least. But wait, there's more. Enter the battering ram, a large, heavy log sometimes covered in metal, used to break down the castle gates. And the siege tower, a movable structure as tall as the castle walls, allowing invaders to climb over defenses. The innovation in siege warfare was wild. But sieges weren't all about attacking. Defending had its own art form. Imagine pouring boiling oil or releasing a swarm of arrows from the battlements. Moats, those water-filled ditches around castles, weren't just for aesthetic appeal. They were effective barriers against siege towers and battering ram. Then there were drawbridges, machicolations, and murder holes. All tools and structures designed to keep the invaders at bay. Makes you think twice about knocking on a medieval castle door, doesn't it? Remember the Siege of Constantinople in 1453. Ottoman cannons blasted the ancient walls for weeks, heralding the fall of a great empire. Then there's the Siege of WorldLens, where a young Joan of Arc rallied the French troops, turning the tide of the 100 Years' War. These weren't just battles. They were pivotal moments in history. But for every success, there were many sieges filled with suffering. Disease, starvation, and the unforgiving elements took their toll. For the attackers, maintaining a siege was a test of resources and willpower. For the defenders, it was often a fight for survival. Who would break first? Sometimes it wasn't about battling it out. Many sieges ended through parley. Negotiations between the attacker and defender could lead to conditions of surrender, sparing lives. The art of diplomacy played as vital a role as the mightiest of siege engines. Are you starting to see the intricacies of medieval siege warfare? Whether on the attacking or defending side, it was a game of strategy, innovation, and endurance. Who knew history had so much drama? By now, you'd think that sieges were the way to go forever, right? Well, times change, and so does warfare. With the rise of gunpowder and artillery, those mighty castle walls began to crumble, quite literally. Advanced cannons could do in hours what trebuchets did in days. Castles, which once seemed unbreakable, started to become obsolete. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Before these advancements, when a siege failed, it wasn't always due to superior defense or cunning strategy. Sometimes Mother Nature intervened. Inclement weather, like torrential rains, could transform siege camps into muddy messes, making conditions unbearable for the attackers. Hey, ever watch those epic movies about knights and castles? Many of them take inspiration from real siege events. Massive battles, acts of heroism, and bitter betrayals. Hollywood is nothing on actual medieval history. Remember Helm's Deep from The Lord of the Rings or the Battle of Blackwater from Game of Thrones? Art imitates life. These cinematic showdowns reflect the gritty realities of medieval sieges. Now, after all this talk about assaults and defenses, sieges and strategies, you might wonder, what's the takeaway here? Beyond the catapults and the castle walls, sieges tell us about human resilience, innovation, and the lengths we'll go to defend our homes and ideals. But they also remind us of something vital: progress. As siege warfare evolved, so did societies and technologies. What was once the pinnacle of military strategy became a chapter in history books, only to be replaced by new methods and challenges. So the next time you visit a grand old castle, run your fingers over its cold stone walls. Think of the tales they could tell, the secrets they've witnessed, and the relentless ebb and flow of human ingenuity. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and dive deep into more fascinating chapters of history.